Hello, hello, hello. Tom Fontana here. We're starting a new segment on this Substack channel called Favorite Authors. This particular conversation is going to be about the great poet Anne Sexton. My guest is Marilyn Campbell. Marilyn Campbell, old dear friend of mine, not old in age, but old in spirit. She and our friend Linda Laundra adapted Anne Sexton's poetry into an evening of the theater, which had a great run at the Provincetown Playhouse off Broadway and has been done subsequently in various theaters around the world. We are going to be doing, actually next week, we're going to be posting a shortened version of My Own Stranger, the name of the play. Besides Marilyn, who's in it, there are a couple of other actors you may have heard of: Mariska Hargitay, Edie Falco, Juliana Margulies. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Right now, I just want to say thank you for doing this, Marilyn, and here we go.
My pleasure. So happy to be with you.
So let's start with when you first met Anne Sexton. And obviously you didn't meet her in person. When was the first poem that you read of hers that made you go, oh?
Well, really, I had read Anne Sexton in college. But my real introduction to her was when I came to New York. Linda Laundra and I were good friends. We were looking for projects to do. We were at a publisher's sort of party one night, and we ran into a man named Al Poulin, who was an editor. He told us that we should do a play about Anne Sexton, that she was incredibly theatrical, that she belonged on stage. So Linda and I thought, well, it could be a dark journey, but we both loved her from college, and so we thought, we'd take a look, see if we could make something out of it, which we did. We started to work on the poetry, and then in 1977, her letters came out.
Yes.
And that really gave us the opportunity to be able to flesh out and present the poetry in an interesting way.
Yeah, it had a narrative line.
It did, because she's confessional, and you always feel like she's talking directly to you. So that began our journey.
How long did it actually take you to put the adaptation together? I mean, I know the two of you worked on it constantly.
4 years it took us to get it to off-Broadway.
Yeah.
But
we had done it at the Writers' Theater in New York, didn't we?
We did. We were having a difficult time with Sterling Lord, Sexton's agency, giving us the rights. So our dear Linda, who was braver than George Washington, said, okay, what we're going to do is put something together and present it for one night only. So we did. We put it together. On a wing and a prayer. We didn't know if we were going to be successful or anything, but that's the way you do in the theater when you believe in something. So we did it. Sterling Lord showed up. They loved it. They loved the audience reaction. We got an immediate standing ovation. So Sterling Lord agency went back and reported to Linda Sexton that the piece was worth looking at. And we made that connection with her. We flew to Boston and we met her. And she loved our take on the piece because, number one, it was very positive. And so much of what Linda was getting were requests from people really in mental institutions and things like that, because the material was so sensational.
Sure.
And she really was not willing to give anybody the rights, but she read our play and she loved that we had concentrated on Anne's best work, and she gave us the rights, and she's been with us all these years.
And she gave us the rights to do it on Substack.
She did. And she said, thank you for keeping my mother's work alive.
Well, it's a very funny, my experience with the whole thing was simply you and Linda Laundra were so passionate about it. It was so remarkable to me to watch the two of you and the journey that the play took, because it was as dramatic as most plays are. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, it's a poetry reading. It was so active, and it was you and Pat Leisinger and
Nancy
Campbell.
right.
Yeah. When David Launder and I started the Substack channel, it was one of the first things I said to him is we got to bring My Own Stranger back. So for me, that we're going to have it next week, it's like kind of going full circle and coming home to something that we all fell in love with.
Everything about Anne Sexton is dramatic. When the letters came out, it caused a huge controversy because so many of the people that she was writing to, Dee Snodgrass and Maxine Kumin and all these folks, thought that she was talking directly to them. And when the letters came out, you could see that she was talking in this loving way to all of them. And a lot of them got, Snodgrass in particular was a little, upset because he thought he was so special in her life. And it turned out that he was, but there were many other special people too. And then, of course, Diane Middlebrook came out, which was a biography that was sanctioned by the estate, caused another huge controversy because it included in the biography Anne's private tapes with her psychiatrist.
Oh.
And so many people thought that was violating, the patient doctor. But Anne had written in her instructions in her will that she wanted this to happen. She gave her sanction. She wanted, because I think so much of, what she suffered and the things she wrote about, she was really trying to reach people who were suffering with these same things. And so she thought, she felt it was ethical that they hear this and what she went through.
Yeah.
So with her, there's always controversy.
Yes, which is great, which is wonderful. That's a well-lived life that has controversy. Do you think that the pieces are multi-generational? I understand that our generation would appreciate it because we had this kind of same lived experiences as Anne Sexton did. But I'm curious what you think in terms of millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha or whatever the gens are.
I think even more so now than ever because mental illness is still with us, is still prevalent.
Yeah.
We always have the audience members coming up to us and talking about their relationships with their mother and their parents. And I think that's the thing that she really did for people. I have this quote by Kurt Vonnegut who says that Anne Sexton domesticated his fear. I think that's true. Plus, she's a great writer. She cuts to the truth, to the core, and that never goes out of style. It's been my experience that everyone relates to it, even young people. When we did it at Nickelodeon.
Oh, when was this?
This was back right when we were doing the show in New York. The young people were so interested because, of course, they're going through a lot of, she dares to say things that people don't say. It's raw, it's real, it's authentic, and I think it's going to last forever.
Talk about her relationship first to her mother, because that's a big part of the piece that we're going to do.
Well, both her daughters, Linda and Joy, really had to suffer through continual, suicide attempts. They would come home from school one time and Anne was there on the staircase and they had to call the police and call the doctors and take care of their mother.
They were how old?
Young, high school, all through their lives. She was first diagnosed with postpartum depression. She really spiraled down after the children were born, but she was never formally diagnosed. Maybe bipolar now is something that we understand, but back then we really didn't have that word.
Sure.
And we really didn't have any medications to kind of help,
Right.
So our play ends with a letter to her daughter, trying to explain what's happened. Not to apologize, but to help Linda understand, what had happened. It's a beautiful letter. And I wanted to just do a shout out to Linda because she did give us permission. She always gives us permission because she loves the work. And I also think that Linda Launder and I are the only people that have ever been granted permission to write a play because she's very skeptical.
Yeah.
So she trusts us. But I just wanted to say that Her name is Linda Gray Sexton. She's a successful writer in her own right, and she's always been the executor of the Sexton estate. And she also has a podcast on Substack called Born Survivor.
Well, maybe at some point she'll be on this Substack channel and we can be on her Substack channel. All right. Well, and now talk about the mother, because I find that relationship to be absolutely fascinating. I mean, when Anne says, my mother says I gave her cancer, when I heard that line for the first time, I was like blown away by it.
It affects everyone that way.
Yeah.
My mother says I gave her cancer as if death were catching, as if death transferred. So, yeah, that was a complicated relationship, but her parents were very wealthy. They were party animals. So I think Anne and her sister were kind of left to their own devices.
Also, one of the things that's not in the piece is the relationship to her husband, who was, it's in the full play, but I don't think we're really touching on it in the piece that we're putting on.
Right.
And which is fine. But again, I just remember he was a poet, I believe.
No, he was a salesman.
A salesman.
He was not creative at all.
Creative at all.
And
because I remember her showing him a poem and him going, oh, I don't think this
that's
is so
hotsy-totsy. Yeah, no, he didn't approve of it at all.
Yeah.
He wanted her to be the straight wife and mother and the Boston social, he wanted her to be those conservative things. So she had to struggle against all of that too.
Yeah.
My husband is a square. He has complete plans on how to run each day. He's sensible with roots. He is with this world. And then at the end of her life, when she decided she was actually going to commit suicide, she divorced him and separated herself from everyone, her daughters, everyone, and eventually did it with no fanfare. Yeah. Before it had always been fanfare, but this time
How did she die?
She put on her mink coat and made a martini and went out to the garage and asphyxiated herself in the garage.
In the car,
in the car. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, the other times there had been a lot of fanfare. Like I said, the children came home and she was on the staircase. Those were cries for help.
Yeah.
But at the end, she was young. She was only 45. So she just couldn't deal with that pain anymore. And there wasn't much help for women in 1974 when she did it.
In terms of her poetry, just talk about it, if you can, about the technical aspects of it.
Well, there were a group. There was Sylvia Plath,
right?
Robert Lowe, who was teaching a class that Plath and Sexton both took together.
Oh, really?
This is a whole play in itself. And after the class, they would go to a bar, they would drink martinis, get really wasted, and talk about poetry. So it's confessional, which makes it great for theater because we can break that wall and go right out to the audience and use the audience as a psychiatrist, as a someone to confess to. And a lot of, poets don't care for that genre in that era, but it was also... she says one night she saw I.A. Richards on educational television reading a sonnet and explaining its form, and she thought I could do that. So she really studied poetic form. She took classes, and this was later in life. After she was married and had kids, she didn't do very well in high school. She wasn't a great student. Her psychiatrist said, you should write poetry. It might mean something to someone else someday. She says, that gave me a feeling of purpose, a little cause, something to do with my life, no matter how rotten I was. She was a confessional poet, followed sort of the Robert Lowe kind of school of poetry, but she was also very studied, understood the forms of poetry. It just wasn't all, willy-nilly. She worked at it very, very hard.
Do you think that if she were alive today, would she have survived 44?
Maybe. Because there's medication, because there's psychiatry, because, there's a lot of people with bipolar, who I have friends who've suffered with that. So, it's still prevalent, still difficult, but maybe because there's more help. All they had was Thorazine, which was a weird drug back then. You couldn't be in the sun, and she was a sun freak. She used to sit out in her lawn chair in her mink coat with snow piled behind her and some tinfoil under her chin, sunbathing in the middle of winter.
Talk a little bit about what it was like on stage connecting with the other two actresses, because this is the Substack thing is very different. You recorded it with two other actresses, and then
right. We did our
name?
3 stars, and then we did use some other actors to use that glue, do those letters, and do that connective.
Who were the other two actresses?
Carolyn Strange and Susan Bennett.
Yes, they were very good.
Thank you.
But so what I'm saying is that's a different, because it was done in pieces. Like Mariska was by herself when we recorded her, and Edie was, and Juliana was. When you were rehearsing the play for off Broadway, the 3 of you and Linda Landra spent a lot of time in the terms of the relationship, the physicality, but also the emotional connections. The poetry led you to a place where the 3 of you could communicate together and create something.
So it wasn't a one-woman show. It was like a one-woman show, but with 3 voices, which we thought was more interesting.
Yeah.
Clive Barnes said we were id, ego, and super ego. We were all the same person. We cast it very differently, so everybody had a different perspective. But we really, I think, enriched her voice to add these 3 people, these 3 voices. Let's say Nancy was more direct, and my character was a little more spiritual, and Patty was kind of the domestic housewife. Patty had such a hard time with the material. We tell this story about how we came to opening night at that workshop that we did, and we literally had to drag her on stage. She was just so, and the fear and the angst that she brings.
She was a musical comedy actress, and so this was so different for her. So I applauded her courage, really stepping outside of her comfort zone, because there was no dancing and singing in My Own Stranger.
No, it's pure. It's so raw and so personal that you really do have to get all the way down with it. First act ends with her, a poem about her suicide. So we go there. We go all the way there. But we come back in that second half. And I think that's the thing that Linda Sexton loved about it so much. First, that we concentrated on her 3 most famous books. All My Pretty Ones, To Bedlam and Partway Back, and Live or Die, which won the Pulitzer Prize. So we really concentrated on the best work, and our play is really as positive as you can get. And this is the thing I loved about Sexton. Plath writes a lot of death poetry, but Sexton is always searching. She's always searching for that light, which gives dramatically. It gives that good through line, because there's always this struggle to reach higher.
No, that's beautifully said, and I think you're absolutely on the money with that. You don't leave the play, and hopefully people won't leave the Substack version feeling depressed.
No.
You feel oddly uplifted by the life that has been
That's correct.
Celebrated.
And it was a huge life. She lived life to the fullest. Or she says that in the letter, live life to the fullest. She tells her daughter that. And she did. With all this pain, she was always struggling to live.
Yeah. You had a quote you wanted to do about poetry, because I said
I do.
I said I'm
this
an
is
idiot.
by a man named Philip Pullman. And it says, poetry is not a fancy way of giving you information. It is an incantation. It is actually a magical spell. It changes things. It changes you. I come to you in the midst of the fires of hate with a sincere belief that we can be forged into something more beautiful. on the other side. That doesn't make me an optimist. It makes me a poet. And to be a poet is to resurrect dead things like hope. To be a poet is to be an ambassador for humanity in a society with an allergic reaction to itself. To be a poet is to notice the quiet magic that sustains life, is to tune each word to the hum of it, find majesty and magnificence in the muck. Poetry is not merely a genre of literature. It is a mode of living, something we can all do if we allow ourselves to be beautiful.
Oh, that's great.
And this is kind of what I think the whole thing was about for Anne. She says, I was tired of being a woman, tired of the spoons and the pots, tired of my mouth and my breasts, tired of the cosmetics and the silks. There were still men who sat at my table, circled around the bowl that I offered up. But I was tired of the gender of things.
Okay. Well, thank you, Marilyn Campbell. As always, it's a joy to be with you. And I'm really looking forward to next Sunday when we post My Own Stranger. You're going to come back, and we're going to do more of these. I love you, and I'm so glad I'm in Chicago and I could see you face to face.
I love you too. Thank you so much.
We'll do this. You'll pick one of these, and we'll talk about that.
Dostoevsky next.
I love Dostoevsky.